Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Instant Payments Podcast. I'm your host, Tal Clark. I'm the CEO of Instant Financial, a fintech company that modernizes payments and payroll for hourly workers and their employers. I've worked in the payments industry for 30 years, including roles at Fiserv and Money Network. Thank you to our audience for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe, leave a review, or suggest a future guest. This podcast features industry leaders to discuss opportunities and challenges affecting the workplace and the lives of the workforce. Before we get started with our guest, I want to plug a new awards program we just launched for hourly workers in service industries. It's called Workforce Warriors, and anyone can nominate an hourly worker who goes above and beyond. Nominations are open through November 9th, and 3 winners will receive a $1,000 gift card in December. Visit instant.co for more information. Now, moving on to today's episode, I'm excited to welcome Matt Umholtz to the show. Matt has deep roots in payroll and HR technology. As president and CRO of AllianceHCM, he helps power some of America's top restaurant brands with scalable workforce solutions. Matt began his career as a founder with a successful exit for his own payroll company and has since scaled AllianceHCM into one of the fastest growing providers in the QSR and multi-unit restaurant space. Known for his obsession with operational execution, Matt brings a unique perspective on how technology and leadership intersect to drive real results. He lives in Texas with his wife and 3 kids and remains passionate about helping operators build businesses that win without losing what made them special. Matt, welcome to the show. How are things going today?
They're going fantastic, and man, that sounds way better when you say it.
Yeah, so and you do have a great background, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about your experience in the restaurant space and some of the things that you guys have going on in Alliance HCM and some of the things that we can do together as well to help the space. But fill in the blanks for me, just real quick, more about your personal background and where you are today, and maybe start with how you arrived and ended up in the roles you're in Alliance HCM.
Yeah, it's a really great question, and I'll tell you, this morning I put a post out on LinkedIn. We're welcoming a new member to our team, and I first met this new member 21 years ago when I started at that giant payroll company, and he was in my first training class. So it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks this morning, realizing I've been in the
Yeah.
business 21 years. But so before I started in the payroll business, I think it helped shape the story a little bit. In college, I used to work in high-end kitchens. I was actually like a technology guy and was helping the general manager of a restaurant with the tech stuff. And he said, "Hey, man, if you show up in the morning, I'm sure chef will help you learn how to cook, how to operate in the kitchen." So I started showing up 5:30 a.m., meeting with the meat purveyor, understanding cuts of meat and how to butcher, and learned a ton of technique, was advised to buy the Culinary Institute of America cookbook and learn the 5 mother sauces and all that fun stuff, and ended up working my way up into a kitchen. I was in college. I became the sous chef at a restaurant before I left to pursue a career in technology. So
Wow.
I've got a passion and a background for restaurants and food, and I've worked the expo line, and I've worked the hotline. I've served as garde manger. I mean, whatever you want, I've probably done it in the kitchen. So I love the restaurant business. But when I ended up leaving and graduating from college, I decided I wanted to go into the technology space. Started my career with one of the giant payroll vendors. Spent about 8 years there. Eventually, decided I could leave and build a better mousetrap. Started a payroll company from scratch here in Houston, Texas. Several years, Inc. 5000, fastest growing company in America. Proudest achievement, we were actually the Houston Business Journal's #1 company to work for in 2017. So we won
Wow.
number
Super.
one. And that's a blind survey that goes out to your employees, and everybody says when it comes out, and you're always nervous of like, hey, do they hate me? Like, what are they going to say? But had great results with that. Eventually, we were in the payroll space. You can borrow technology, which is like a leasing arrangement or a licensee arrangement, or you can own and build your technology. So we were at that time licensing technology, and there's only so far you can go with a licensed payroll product. and I was growing more passionate about a verticalized payroll solution. And if you really want to go deep into a vertical, you have to own the technology. So a friend of mine who I'd known about 15 years approached me and said, "Hey Matt, we should join forces. Come join the team. Help us grow the business." That was Randy, the founder of Alliance Payroll Services, and
Okay.
we ended up merging the companies together in October of 2020. So just 5 years ago. And
Okay.
yeah, so we merged companies together. The interesting thing was at the time, you bring two teams together. That's always a challenge, and I have a lot of good experience from that I can advise when restaurateurs are buying another business, which happens all the time in the quick serve restaurant space. But for me, it was really looking at the business from the viewpoint of what the combined business could really specialize in. 50% of the business at that time was really in the multi-location restaurant space, with some
Okay.
of the largest operators in the country as customers. And being a old hat in the payroll space, I see and I continue to see that the future within our world is a verticalized offering.
Hmm.
And I think the generalist providers, when there are niche markets, will kind of go the way of the dodo bird, because the industries need specialization and somebody that gets and knows them. And that's really what we're most passionate about today, is really knowing the customer better than anybody else, and continuing to
Yeah.
focus on helping them be successful. So that was a long way around to your question.
No, that's great, and I wanna
Yeah.
back up a little bit and fill in some blanks there, 'cause, there's some things, I've visited several times, but some things I didn't know. Where First of all, where did you go to school? You mentioned college.
Yeah,
Where'd you
I
go to
went
college?
to I went to Texas State, which is
Okay,
just south of Austin, Texas, in between Austin and San Antonio.
got it, and the
Yeah,
restaurant you were working in at the time, is it
yeah.
still
So
around?
actually, I was working at restaurants in different country clubs.
Okay,
So I worked in
there you go.
yeah, and I worked in a country club. Restaurant is really where I learned, a country club called River Hill Country Club in Kerrville, Texas. If you're a golfer, Byron Nelson was a member back then. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
huge.
but yeah,
Well, and then the business you started, I don't think I
mhm,
realized you merged the business that you started with Alliance,
yep,
at some
yes.
point. What was the name of the business, your payroll business before you merged?
So the name of the business is Paysphere.
Okay,
Yeah, and
got
Paysphere
it.
was actually it was a trademark filed by American Express, but they never filed statement of use. So we were able to get the name, and we grew that business in two parts. So we grew what I would consider kind of a small business division, and then my passion diverged into helping larger enterprises. So we sold that small business division to a publicly traded company out of Austin, Texas. And then we
Okay.
took that remaining business, continued to grow it, and eventually merged it in with the team here at Alliance.
Okay. Well, I think your thoughts on where your clients, your customers want to go with a specialized solution and something that is more verticalized. Give me your view of the restaurant space, not particularly on the services you provide, but a little bit there. I mean,
Yeah.
I today we run into restaurants that are. I think one of the challenges is multiple vendors to do everything that they need to do, they do with a different vendor. And I think there's opportunities
Hmm.
for them to maybe consolidate and look at vendors who can provide more services and do it in a way that is specific to the industries that they're in this case, quick service restaurants and multi-unit restaurants. How do you see that, and what are you guys doing to maybe address that? Because I've heard that from restaurateurs, which is,
Yeah.
I've got 6 vendor relationships and I like to have 2 or 3, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how do you see that and what's going on in that space? And just give me your thoughts on some of that.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer that in a couple different ways. Number one, I'll just answer it directly. I mean, integration is a key within the restaurant space. Our product was built forever ago to integrate with all the pieces that a restaurant leverages. So think point of sale, et cetera. But moreover, being a founder and operating a P&L literally of startup founder with, hey, are we going to actually make money to pay anybody this month? Right. So I've
Hmm.
operated a P&L and understand it extremely well. So when you're talking to a restaurateur, I mean, I understand the cost inputs and how the business operates. So I think, and that cascades down to our organization where we should be speaking P&L. And right now in the restaurant business, you've got same store sales are down at the same time that costs are pretty dramatically up. If you look at some of the reports being generated by the publicly traded guys, I mean, they're citing what I would consider promotion fatigue.
Yep.
So you had companies do a lot of promotions. They had great quarters, but they're starting to experience some fatigue, and they're predicting the next few quarters are going to be a little bit turbulent. So we see the best operators in the country are looking for ways to engage the customer a little bit differently to drive repeat business, finding ways to win that'll differentiate them. And I kind of joke that you go to your dentist and when you're walking out, they schedule your next appointment, right? Almost said
Hmm.
meeting. They
Right.
schedule your next appointment. And if you say, "Hey, I don't have my calendar," or "Let me look," or whatever, then they'll say, "Okay, well, we're going to text you." So my favorite restaurant is this Italian restaurant right outside of my neighborhood. They never text me, right? I don't get a
Okay.
text saying, "Hey, it's been a while since we've seen you."
Yep.
And we're seeing some of the better operators in the country that are in what I would consider to be kind of fast casual. They're starting to adopt ways to continually engage that customer and bring them back. So imagine last Friday you ordered a pizza to your house, and this Friday at noon you get a text and it says, "Hey Tal, last week you ordered this. Do you want to order that again?" Click, right? So
Hmm.
that's a way to leverage technology to drive the customer experience. And we're seeing some of those larger operators really start to adopt some of those tactics. But
That's good. Well,
yeah,
you're touching a little bit on what's going on in the industry today and some of the challenges that are being faced by operators. What are you seeing out there? You mentioned one thing that sounds like it could be used, which is communications with their customers once they leave the restaurant and trying to pull them back in. What are some other things that you're seeing out there from a competitive pressure perspective on the operators and how they're running their businesses in 2025 and some things that the successful operators are doing that separate them from
yeah.
others today?
Yeah, and I can speak to that from the viewpoint of the pieces of the puzzle that we touch. I would say that some of the best operators are really training their general managers to speak P&L.
Hmm.
You've really got two big inputs in a restaurant. I mean, and you've got real estate expense, but let's eliminate that. But you've got two big inputs. You've got food cost and labor cost, right? If I can teach my general manager how to speak P&L, I can teach him how to control my food cost. I can institute inventory management systems and things like that. If I understand that I'm at a Taco Bell and cheese is one of the largest inputs, I can teach my team to control the portions, right? So there
Yep.
are things I can do. I have to care, right, as a
Yep.
manager, and I have to know. The other input is really the labor cost, and labor cost um, can come in a few different ways. Like the National Restaurant Association anticipates that turnover costs you about $5,800 per employee. The average quick serve restaurant has 150% turnover. So do the math. I mean, it's a massive number. So the largest operators, the best operators, like how do we reduce turnover to eliminate the spend? And I kind of go back to my days of operating my own company and being able to get us, help us be one of the top companies to work for. And a lot of it was educating an employee at hire, like what is the mission of the business? What are we here to do? How do we serve a customer? And really telling the story. And in a distributed environment, I have 100 locations throughout the country. How do I tell that story and garner buy-in with a new hire that on average is 24 years old and it's their first job, right?
Yep.
So there's some storytelling and technology that you can leverage to garner that buy-in. Your general manager has to reinstill that and continually help. Then there's the element of, okay, now I've got this employee onboarded. How do I speak to that employee in a way that gives me an inclination of how that location is operating? So we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing some of the top operators do 1 week, 5 day, 10-day surveys to survey that new hire on how was your onboarding experience? Based on our company's mission, summarize it in these 3 words, pick and choose. Like they're asking some of those things, and it's giving a good indicator. So the lower survey scores, naturally, you map to the P&L, and the P&L is not very good. So it's one of the lower performing locations. So that initial survey, even follow up, or in the HR world they call them stay interviews, but those ways to communicate with the line level actually is a great indicator of the performance at the location, and we're seeing it map to the P&L impact.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And as you know, we're involved in some of the data we show is where we can also help with that turnover as well, right? And by providing access, so many of these employees and the cost of employees and the cost of labor has gone up over the last 3 or 4 years, right? We see that
Yeah.
in numbers. In one way that we try to support in partnership with you guys and directly is making sure they have access to those wages. If you have access to your wages, the demand for higher wages can go down or be something that's not top of mind because I just want my money. I can get my money today. And so we've shown a 35% decrease in turnover where we can do that. Right. So
Mhm.
sort of goes hand in hand with what you're talking about in the labor market as a whole. Um, what do you guys see in regards to you see the labor costs, you see what's going on with the labor environment. You were just talking about some of that and satisfaction and the way it's managed in the restaurant and what that performance means. Other big cost is food costs has changed
Mhm.
dramatically over the last couple of years as well. What are you seeing there? And is that something that we can expect to change, or is that something we're learning to live with in the restaurant space?
Yeah, from a food cost standpoint, the restaurant operators we talk to don't see a future where food cost is going to contract anytime
Yeah.
soon. So that's showing up obviously in your menu and your price items and things like that. And I haven't spoke to any that are talking about a strategy in controlling food costs other than
Right.
good inventory management, good ordering management, good predictable future sales based on historical sales. I mean, there are some technologies out there that help with that. That's not something we really touch. When we're talking to the operators, that yeah, it's really how do we control labor cost, and scheduling optimization is a big thing. And you and I, Tal, we wake up in the morning, we get in our vehicle and we drive to an office or we drive to see a customer, and we never think about, is my car reliable and do I have fuel to get there? The average restaurant employee, especially in the QSR space, they wake up and they make a decision to go to a shift depending on if they have enough money to put gas in the car,
Yes.
right? So with products like Instant, they're able to get money to get to a shift. And that helps from the viewpoint of shift coverage of, hey, this person showed up because we were able to advance them $30. I bet
Yeah.
if you look at your averages, it's probably in the $50 range, maybe per transaction on an earned wage access, right?
That's right.
And
Yep.
it's to cover a phone bill or to cover fuel or get a new tire for the vehicle so they can get to work. I mean, it's simple stuff that you and I and the corporate office at a multi-location operator doesn't think about. But it's the reality on the ground is they need a few bucks to get to their shift. And if they can't get there, then they're going to go somewhere else. So that leads to turnover. The other piece with the average employee being, 24 years old and 33% of the restaurant space being first job, they want ease and simplicity and understanding when I need to work, where I have to work, and all that. So it goes back to scheduling and scheduling optimization, and controlling labor costs for the general manager is shift coverage, but it's also, hey, sales are bad today. Who do we need to let go home early? So there needs to be this scheduling component tied into sales. And then the predictable nature is, you're a college football fan. So there's a
Yep.
restaurant on campus that last year was an away game. This year it's a home game. Last year, for the same game. It was raining. This year, it's predicted to be sunny. So we need to schedule X amount because we have a big patio outside, right? So there's predictive natures of scheduling that are required to help control that fluctuating labor costs, which again is really the biggest lever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's huge. Well, look, we've been talking in generalities a little bit around restaurants in general, but is there a story from Alliance HCM regarding one of your clients that really captures what it means to build for growth without losing what made the business special? I know we've worked on a few together, but I was looking maybe for a specific restaurant that comes to mind for you that tells the story about really where Alliance HCM has helped them and they're able to scale and grow the business without losing, what they've built the business around.
absolutely. I think one of my an operator I learn a ton from. And a lot of the stories that we take into account and we try to cascade to others comes from it's actually a location or a business headquartered here in Texas. But they operate Buffalo Wild Wings locations, Arby's locations. It's a business called Aspire to Be, but they really operate a fantastic shop. They're very focused on culture and all the things that they do from a cultural standpoint directly, impact the P&L, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of the things that they do become best practices for operators and other operators we talk to. So thankful for their long-term partnership, but also for their ideas on how to operate a really well-oiled machine.
Okay. Okay. That's great. Well, look, Matt, this has been a great discussion. Let's wrap up here for now and save the rest of the conversation for later. For our listeners, you can learn more about Matt's company at AllianceHCM.com. Please tune back in for part 2 of our podcast, where we'll dive into more about building restaurant industry culture and operational trends. Thank you for joining us on the Instant Payments podcast. And don't forget to nominate hourly workers for the Workforce Warriors Award at instant.co.